Hello, everybody. My name is Mildred. I'm an immigration consultant for Global Opportunities, and we're happy to be here with you tonight to talk about IELTS. Thank you for being here. We're right now in Zoom, but I know we're also live on Facebook. So thank you guys for being here with us. Hopefully this information will turn out to be what you need in terms of IELTS. So today with me, I have Mónica Aguirretion. She's a stakeholder relations and business development manager for IDP Education, IELTS Canada. And I also have with me Natalie Hughes. She's the chair and manager of Conestoga Language Institute, which is an authorized center for IELTS. So thank you guys for being here. Natalie, I know you work at Conestoga Language. That's an authorized center. So thank you for being here with us. Let us know about Conestoga and what you guys do towards IELTS.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. So yes, my name is Natalie Hughes. I'm the chair of the Conestoga Language Institute, and I also manage our IELTS Center at Conestoga College. Conestoga College, as you have said, is an authorized IELTS testing center, and we are actually Canada's first IELTS testing center. We have IELTS locations all across Canada, not just in Ontario. And we have been testing for quite a long time in Canada. So we have quite a presence in many different provinces, and we have a good historical presence testing IELTS. So we have a lot of knowledge of IELTS, and I'm happy to share what I know with everyone tonight.
That's great. I think my first IELTS I took at Conestoga, which was like many, many years ago, but I did. So Monica, thank you for being here. I know you speak both English and Spanish. We'll be switching back and forth eventually, but thank you so much for being here. You are the stakeholder relationship manager at IELTS. So what exactly do you do?
Bueno, primero que todo, encantada. Thank you very much for having me here. As a stakeholder relations manager for IELTS, I am in charge of keeping people together. Especially I work with all of the what we call recognized organizations that accept IELTS. So we're talking about immigration, we're talking about universities, colleges, professional associations that accept IELTS, and I work with them in order to make the process easier. A lot of times, when someone has taken the IELTS and they need to resend a score, or they don't know what the school they go to, or the school they have to send their application, I work with our test centers and also with those organizations to make sure that the process is flawless and seamless.
It seems a lot, but it's good to know, because I mean, IELTS is such an important test, especially for immigration purposes, at least for Canadian immigration purposes, whether it could be an IELTS general or an IELTS academic. We'll get into that in a bit. I just want you to let us know also about what you were saying earlier to me about IDP education. I think it's interesting to know how it became and what it is.
Yep. So thank you for that opportunity. So IDP is one of the co-owners of IELTS. We co-own IELTS with two other partners. And what we do is we are the front-facing part of IELTS. So we are the ones administering the test, and along with our test centers. Of course, that's a very important part of delivering IELTS, as well as we work together with Cambridge, who are the ones writing the test. So they're the ones who put the brains together, and they make sure that they have all the questions of the test. You will never ever see a question that's repeated on a test. So if you ever have someone saying, oh, don't worry, I'm going to give you the answer sheet to the test, that is a lie, because those questions will never be repeated. So you'll be wasting your money, and you're going to be putting yourself in a very, very bad situation with immigration, with the school you're applying to, with yourself, with your family. So do not trust that. So that's what IDP does. So co-owner of IELTS, and IELTS has been in the market for more than 30 years, actually 32 years now. So we have a long-standing history of English language tests. We are the most recognized English language test around the world.
That's good to know. I didn't know. That's a very interesting fact that a lot of people maybe don't expect, that the questions are never the same. And a lot of people are afraid of IELTS, right? But I think it's not as bad as you think, but it is good to talk about IELTS because especially for me when I deal with clients, there's a lot of countries, most in Latin America, that are not so familiar with IELTS in this case. But within Latin America, this is a test that you would be taking for immigration purposes. They don't have access to another one that is authorized by immigration, which is IELTS General, like I said. And then for academic purposes, it would be the academic IELTS. So overall, if you can either Natalie, Monica, whoever, if you want to talk about IELTS and the components of IELTS, because IELTS, it is a test, like you said, which is recognized to measure your English levels. So if you can talk a little bit more about the test itself, a lot of people just go with what does it mean, what is IELTS, what does IELTS, everything stand for. So if you can go into detail about that, that would be great.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can start, and Monica, feel free to jump in as well. So IELTS, you're right, it's a very long acronym. It stands for International English Language Testing System, and the acronym is IELTS. And as Monica explained, it's a test that's been developed by the world's leading experts in language assessment on 4 key language skills. So IELTS assesses your listening skills, your reading skills, your writing skills, and your speaking skills. And it's designed to assess the language ability of anyone who aims to study, work, immigrate, and integrate in an English speaking environment. So that's the focus of IELTS. The grading scale of IELTS, it's graded on a scale of 1 to 9, and we call them band scores. So when someone takes an IELTS test, they'll get a band score in each skill. And so they'll get a band score from 1 to 9 in listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And when folks use their IELTS score for either immigration or entrance into any post-secondary program, they will need to have a minimum IELTS score in each individual skill, as well as an overall IELTS score, which is more or less an average of the 4 band skills. And IELTS is jointly owned by, as Monica had explained, by British Council, IDP, and Cambridge Assessment English. So that's a little bit about what is IELTS. And then if you'd like, I can explain a little bit about how the 2 tests differ from each other, academic and general.
That would be great, because I mean, we're focused on the general test for immigration purposes, but then again, there's a lot of people that come to study in Canada with the purpose of eventually, staying in Canada or immigrating. And a lot of people ask, because a lot of people, when they first start, when they come to study, they have to take the IELTS academic. And then when they go for immigration purposes, that they're going to be applying for their permanent resident, they're going to be like, do I really have to take another one? And yes, you have to take the general now. So you will be taking a few IELTS along the way, especially for Canadian immigration purposes. So it would be great if you can talk about those.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, there's 2 IELTS versions of the test. There's an IELTS academic version and an IELTS general training version. And both tests assess all 4 language skills: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. So it doesn't matter which version you're taking, you're still being assessed on the 4 language skills. There are some differences between the tests though. So first we'll start with IELTS academic, and then I'll move on to general training. So academic is suitable for those who want to study in an English speaking environment or university. So any type of higher education, that's the focus of academic. And you can also take academic for any type of professional registration purposes. The academic test and the general training test are similar in that all test takers will take the same listening and speaking tests. So those are the same, but the differences are with the reading and the writing tests. So academic and general have the same listening and speaking tests, but different reading and writing tests. For general training, you had mentioned this a little bit already, but you're correct. It's suitable for those who want to apply to study below the degree level, but it also includes folks that want to take it for any type of migration purposes to Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the UK. So IELTS General, it's different in that it focuses more on everyday English that you might use. And so English that you might use in the social, in a social environment or in the workplace environment, and it's less academic. The one piece as well with both tests is that you will take all of the tests mostly on the same day, but sometimes your speaking will be before or after your other section. But in the speaking section can be completed up to a week before or after the other tests. But in total, doesn't matter if you're taking academic or general training, the whole test time is about 2 hours and 45 minutes for all 4 skills. So essentially, you will receive the same result, the TRF, but there are some key differences in terms of what you're being assessed on. And those key differences are only for the reading and for the writing tests.
Okay, now, and I do have a question regarding the speaking part. Because with this pandemic, everything was like a little bit different. Has anything changed on the IELTS? Has anything related to, is it still a one-on-one interview in person? Like, is it the same? A lot of people, especially my clients, are usually afraid of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a person and it's going to be, they get so nervous with that part. So I just want to ask if you guys, can go into a little bit more detail about the speaking part.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And you're right, there has been a few changes that have happened since the pandemic started. One of the changes is that instead of having to be in the same room as a speaking examiner for your speaking test, IELTS now has something called VCS, which is essentially your speaking exam, but it's virtual. So your examiner may be in another part of Canada, and you would maybe do your speaking exam via Zoom with your examiner rather than them being in the same place as you are. There's a lot of reasons why we did that to be able to allow more safety for folks, but that has been a really helpful part of the IELTS test, and it will likely continue going forward. But in terms of the speaking test, you are correct. It's always been a personal face-to-face conversation with an IELTS speaking examiner. It's around 11 to 14 minutes long. That's how long the speaking test is, and there's 3 components to it. But it's always a face-to-face conversation, and it's in real time. So you're not speaking to a computer. There's no pre-recorded questions that you'll be asked. It's more of a dialogue, a conversation with an examiner.
And if I may add to that,
Sure.
A lot of times, we hear people saying like, oh my God, I'm afraid of speaking to a person. But at the same time, when you're speaking with a person, you ease into the conversation. There's a lot of videos on our YouTube channel that people can watch, like, okay, this is what the actual speaking portion looks like. And you're not going to be distracted by someone else speaking right next door to you, because you're going to be on a separate room. And it happens to me. I don't know if it ever happens to you. If you're talking about something and then you hear someone saying, talking about dinner, and you're talking about meat and rice, and you're talking about ice, and like suddenly it's like, oh yeah, the meat. Oh, sorry, no, I meant this, because your mind gets distracted very quickly as well. So once you have the one-on-one, it is a lot easier in a way. Of course, you always have to prepare yourself. I think IELTS is about preparation as well.
Yeah, but also the speaking part, I think you can just, when you are at the test, they do give you they say, okay, we're going to start, take your time, take a deep breath, you can make some notes. This is going to be, we're going to start. If you want to do some notes and everything. I guess it's just really take, if they allow you to do that, and if you need to, breathe in, breathe out in the first place, that is great. And especially when I find a lot of people, when the speaking part, they're very worried about their accent. And I think it's actually easier to have an in-person test when that's the situation, because a lot of people tend to think that maybe other options, and we're going to get into that between IELTS versus CELPIP, because that's the main difference. And I do differ. I think that sometimes if that's something that you're worried about, it's better to have someone actually listening to you, right? So that's great. And talking about authorized centers, Conestoga, like you mentioned, is one, but is there a lot of people ask where, depending on where they're at, where can they find those authorized centers to take their IELTS?
That's a really great question. I've put a couple links in the chat and I'll give a high level overview, but Monica, you're welcome to give some other clarity if you like. So yes, we are an official IELTS testing center, and we do have many different locations across Canada. So I've put our website in the chat and it's www.ieltscanada.ca. So if you go to our website, you'll be able to see where we test across Canada. But that being said, there are also many other IELTS testing centers other than our own. We'd love you to come to ours. We know that we do a great job, but we know that there are other centers as well that folks can book at. So I've also put the link for all of our IDP test centers in the chat as well, and that's www.ieltscanadatest.com. It's important to note that regardless of which location you're taking the test at, Monica did a really good job explaining this, and that the test will be the same test that you're taking in any location around the entire world on the same day. And the test is very regulated so that, you know, candidates should be having, at least at all of our IELTS test centers that we have with Conestoga College, they have a very similar, really high quality testing experience. We have very knowledgeable professional staff at all of our center, regardless of the location. But there are many different locations where folks can take the test according to, you know, what works for them and where they live and what the availability looks like.
And also outside of Canada too, you know, if you do follow that website that Natalie so kindly put on the chat, the IELTS, www.ieltscanada.com, it will also redirect you to ielts.idp.com, and you're going to be able to find centers around the world as well. And, you know, worst cases, and you're like, okay, I can't find anything in my country. You know, we also invite you to go to IELTS.com as well. You'll find all the IELTS centers around the world too. Of course, there are times that are busier because, you know, there are like school deadlines coming up. So our suggestion is do not leave things for the last minute, because you might run into a sold out center that, you know, you really want to take it at Conestoga, but Conestoga is sold out, and, you know, you may have to wait, you know, 2 days maybe, because we do have, and Natalie, I don't know if you want to talk about this, and we do have IELTS on paper or on computer, which is the same and it's valid as well.
Yeah, both as well. Yeah, you can actually talk about that, because that's something that a lot of people do ask about. And also where you were mentioning about, you know, doing it with time. Yes, I do have clients from countries that getting a date for the IELTS is not as easy. There's countries in which you can find out, you know, there's like, I don't know, many dates within the week or days, but then there's other countries in which IELTS will be given every 2 months or every 3 months, or it would depend. So I would recommend checking out the authorized centers in your country and make sure, you know, if you do have many options and many places or many dates, I mean, that's fine. But if you're from a country in which you're going to have a little bit of, you know, a hard time getting that date, or they're very limited, then you might as well want to check in advance what dates they have available, so that you actually also make sure that you prepare for yourself for that date. Because if there's not that many dates available in a specific country, you want to make sure you pass your test, preferably the first time, right? But yes, what is the difference? Is there a difference at all, you know, between the written test or the computer test? I had one, and now that we're getting as well, I had a client that, you know, he preferred computer just because their writing he couldn't really understand anything. So yes, and also if you can let us know, because I know that IELTS supports if there's any disability, if there's any situation related to whatever the need is for the person, that it could be accommodated.
Great questions. Monica, I'll start, but you're welcome to jump in as well. And if you have some more insight that you want to share, please do. So yes, you are correct. If folks need any type of an accommodation or support for the IELTS test, I would encourage them just to reach out to the center that they would like to take their test at. And the center can walk them through any forms that they need to complete to be able to document what supports they need to be able to write the IELTS test. And then the center will also be able to advise what supports they can provide for the IELTS test. There are many different types of accommodations. So it really depends on what the accommodation is that someone needs. And at that point, the center would be able to explain any other documentation that they might need that would support that. And then they would, be happy to make sure that the candidate's getting the testing experience that they need that would meet their needs. You also had another question about computer delivered IELTS versus paper-based IELTS. And that's a really great question. So, and Monica, if you want to jump in and give some more information, that would be great too.
Yeah.
But
of course, go ahead. I'll jump in at the end.
Yeah, no problem. But so essentially, computer-based IELTS and paper-based IELTS are the same in terms of the test, the content that you are, answering on the test, the types of questions that you are answering are the same. The result that you would receive from the IELTS test, regardless if you're doing the paper-based or if you're doing the computer-based, the result is valid for both tests. The only difference really is how you're taking the test. If you're doing the computer delivered test, you're obviously taking the test on a computer, and the computer delivered test tends to have more availability. So there's more dates when you can normally take the computer delivered test. Your speaking, even for the computer delivered test, will still be a face-to-face speaking interview with an examiner, even though you are taking a computer delivered test. So in that way, your listening, your reading and writing will be on the computer instead of writing on a paper. But your speaking exam is still with a live IELTS examiner. So those are some main differences. Monica, feel free to jump in and give any
yeah, definitely. Well, there's another main difference is how long your results will last to come out. So if you're taking a paper IELTS test, it's going to take approximately 13 days for your results to be ready. While if you're taking a computer-based IELTS test, it's going to take between 3 to 5 days for them to be ready. So we know, like you said, sometimes people say, what, I do not like sitting on and writing my essay because I cannot understand my handwriting. People cannot understand it. My hand gets really tired. Then go with the computer based. Now, sometimes, we saw it at the beginning of the pandemic. Here in Canada, there was a big surge. People needed to take IELTS because there were some immigration announcements, and people were really in need of taking the test, and things booked up very, very quickly. And because of the pandemic, there was not a lot of paper tests, but there was a lot of computer tests. And there was a little bit of confusion because some people didn't know that computer test didn't mean an online test, and it was going to be accepted by immigration. So it's just getting used to. If you're used to typing, go with computer. But there's people who, they use their index fingers to type on the computer. So go with the paper. We do have that option, and that's not going to change because we definitely want you to succeed. IELTS test is not to make you fail. We want you to succeed. We want you to be in an environment where you feel comfortable and where you can really demonstrate the level of English that you have.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people mention. There's people that definitely prefer to sit down and organize their thoughts, and they carry on better when they're doing the writing. And that's something that you mentioned, and we're going to get into this, because there's for Canadian purposes, for immigration, of course, you can either take the IELTS General or you can take the CELPIP General, right? So that's 2 tests, and they're very different. I've taken both. And they are very different. A lot of my clients ask, and I was like, I just take everything just so I know what I'm getting into when discussing. But yeah, if you can talk about that, because a lot of people tend to think that the CELPIP is easier and they should go for that one. It's I'll let you guys talk about those differences between those 2 tests.
I can start a little bit, and Natalie, you can follow up afterwards. Look, I'm going to talk about what I know, which is IELTS. And I'm just going to repeat a little bit of what we have said. The fact that we have a one-on-one speaking section, that makes a huge difference, again, because that examiner is going to walk that person into the conversation. They're going to ease them into the conversation. I'm not saying it's going to be just easy peasy, because you're going to have a person there, but it does change that environment. You're not going to have 100 people or 3-4 more people in the same room talking at the same time as you are. There are people who sometimes, they read out loud, and you're trying to speak and to provide your ideas once you're speaking into the computer. Maybe you have no idea how your accent is going to come out because of the microphone. As you mentioned, like, there are people who are worried about their accent. And let me tell you, first of all, accents do not mean you don't speak the language. Accent, on the contrary, means that you're super smart because you speak more than one language. And we'll also have that option of giving people the option of writing IELTS on paper or writing IELTS on computer. And at the end of the day, when people say, oh, one is easier than the other one, really, it's about preparation. If a lot of, we even have people who are native speakers of English taking IELTS test because they have to take it for professional associations. And they come in without any type of preparation, thinking they're going to get a 9 or an 8, it's going to be great. And they come in and they get a 5.5 or a 6, and they're in shock. Like, yeah, what did you expect? Because you're a native speaker of English, it doesn't mean that you're going to go and take an LSAT and, be a lawyer immediately. You have to prepare. You really have to do your job. So IELTS, again, there's a lot of resources available that we want you to succeed. We want you to take a look at those resources. We want you to take courses. Conestoga had courses as well. We have information on the website. We have videos on our YouTube channel that shows you what the speaking portion of the test looks like. And that makes a difference in how you're going to succeed on the test.
Yeah, that's very true, because a lot of people, I do have as well clients that are, that is English is their native language, right? And again, they're like, I'm going to get the best scores. Well, you should prepare for the exam. Doesn't matter which one, but you should prepare for the exam, because that doesn't mean that you are going to get it. First of all, sometimes, we talk and everything, but it's been very long time since we don't actually take on the writing part, for example, right? Or we don't usually are avid readers, and we're not really familiarized with that part. So it is very important that you do prepare for the test. Doesn't matter if you're native or not. And with the non-native speakers, yes, the speaking part is usually the most scary one because of the accent. And it doesn't matter, as long as you know what you're doing, you have everything prepared. I think it's going to be a good part. I myself took, like I said, both tests, and I find the IELTS, but I guess it's a personal aspect of it. For me, yes, it gives me a little bit more time to prepare what I'm going to say with the person who is interviewing me, and also within my writing. It's, I don't know, it's just, I find it that, you're going pace by pace, band by band. So you're focusing on that part. And like you said, when you're talking to a microphone, sometimes if by any chance that day it didn't work, or something happened, or I don't know, you had a bad day, your throat, something's going on, anything can go wrong with that. And of course, when you're talking into a microphone, I don't know, anything can happen. Technology is there to help us, but sometimes, it's you gotta check what's better for you. And overall, like IELTS is international; it can be taken anywhere. As for CELPIP, it can at least it's in the United States, Canada, and only a few countries in Asia. So for example, for us, for Latin American clients, they don't have access to CELPIP. They have access to IELTS in this case. So that's what you are going to be
IELTS is in
preparing.
more than 200 countries.
Yeah. No, I mean, CELPIP is not that old, to be honest. And a lot of people are not familiar with it. And even schools, like, they're not familiar with it. If you're going to go for studies, if you're going to go for that, you have to take the IELTS. That's the one you're going to be taking in this case. And now, do you know, I mean, of course you know, but how much does it usually cost? I know it may vary from country to country, but let's just talk about Canada. in this case?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you are right. It does vary slightly depending on even the region in Canada where you are. But roughly for Ontario, the test is about $300 plus tax for Ontario. And that, again, it may vary slightly depending on the test center. And that fee may vary slightly depending on if you're taking a test in British Columbia in Canada or if you're taking a test in Quebec. So the fee might be slightly different because the tax rates might be different in our different provinces as well. But roughly that's how much the test is.
And we're talking about Canadian dollars.
Yes,
Canadian dollars.
Yes. Yes, Canadian dollars. And the test is valid for 2 years.
Yes, it is valid for 2 years. So, make sure that if you already took a test a year ago, and if you have to send those results to, if it was an academic test, for example, in a general test, that you need an extra TRF, which you call a test report form. You contact the test center where you took it, and you can ask for an extra report. You probably will have to pay an administration fee to get this result to you. So don't be shocked about that, because it is, normal administration fee. But you can always get that extra result sent back to you or to the organization where you need your results to get to.
Okay, and then now talking about taking the test, how about preparation courses? We can say this in English, but that's a question that they ask, and eventually we're just gonna switch to say the same thing but in Spanish. But for the first part, how can you look into preparation courses? Where do you sign? Are there like online or just in person, or how does it work? Let us know about the preparation courses for IELTS.
Yeah, great question. Monica, because we're doing English and French, and to make sure that we're giving the same information for both, did you want to take this question? Or sorry, English and Spanish?
Yes. Yeah, I can do German and Portuguese, but unfortunately no French.
No French.
I can do a bit of French.
Perfecto. Entonces, voy a empezar con español. Tenemos muchos recursos donde pueden ustedes prepararse para tomar el IELTS test. Uno, ustedes pueden llegar a nuestras páginas donde hay prácticas gratuitas, en las páginas que Natalie les había dado, IELTScanada.com o también a IELTScanadaTest.com igualmente. Entonces ahí pueden ustedes llegar a tener varias información. Tenemos también una práctica pagada que se llama IELTS Progress Check. Y lo vamos a poner se va a pasar a nuestros hosts para que lo pongan también en la página. IELTS Progress Check es una práctica pagada donde ustedes van a tomar el test como si fuera el test real, pero en su casa. Y al final del test les van a dar una banda indicativa. O sea, si ustedes llegan a tomar el test ese día, ¿cuál banda les darían ustedes? Esto no es un examen oficial, es únicamente una práctica, pero también lo que les ayuda es a organizar sus ideas, saber cómo funciona el test, hacer el cronometraje de cada sección del test igualmente. Y tenemos también de IELTS Assist, igual en la página web de nosotros, ustedes pueden ver eso. Natalie, I'm not sure if you want to talk a little bit about what Conestoga College has to offer, and then I'll be happy to help out with translation as well.
Sure, not a problem. So yes, at Conestoga College, we offer many different prep opportunities for folks. Before I go into the prep opportunities, I would just kind of put a bit of a word of caution out there for folks. There are many, many different IELTS preparation opportunities that folks can take online. Just be really careful when you're looking at any type of prep course, or if you're purchasing something. Unfortunately, there can be a lot of fraudulent activity. IELTS is a very well-known brand and well-known name because we have been around for a long time. But I would really suggest that folks reach out to an authorized test center or reach out to the IDP website, just to make sure that you are looking for preparation that is first of all, that is going to be related to the IELTS test, because you're working with official IELTS test centers, but you're also not going to be purchasing anything that's fraudulent because, like I had said, IELTS it's a well-known name, so it's easy for that to happen. But in terms of Conestoga College, we offer many different prep opportunities depending on what folks are interested in. So we have different preparation courses that folks can take. We offer IELTS seminars. We have practice tests and workbooks that anyone interested wanting to do more of an old-fashioned paper-based test and practice that way, we have those types of workbooks. I believe, Monica, you might have mentioned this, I'm not sure, but there's also computer delivered familiarization test experience for the IELTS test on the computer. So you can do this experience to kind of simulate what it would look like if you're doing the IELTS test on the computer. And there's also an IELTS preparation guide. So there are a ton of different resources to be able to prepare for the IELTS test. It really depends on how you need to prepare and what you need to prepare. If you're looking to prepare for a specific skill, or if you really need to understand kind of the full IELTS test experience. So there's many different options for folks.
Para traducir un poquito lo que dijo Natalie, si alguno de ustedes de pronto no alcanzó a agarrar toda la información ahí, una de las cosas que Natalie les quiere hacer saber es que por favor tengan mucho cuidado con el tipo de recursos que ustedes van a mirar, porque IELTS es algo es muy reconocido y hay gente que de pronto puede ser fraudulenta, que les quiere sacar dinero, que les dice que les va a dar las respuestas o les dice que les va a dar toda la información que ustedes necesitan, pero no es así. Así que por favor, muchas veces contacten con el centro donde van a tomar el test, porque muchas veces tienen estos recursos para darles a ustedes que son legítimos. Igualmente, vayan a la página de, por ejemplo, de Conestoga o a la página también de IDP IELTS, donde ustedes pueden ver información gratuita, al igual que recursos pagados. Y otra cosa que les queremos recordar es que en nuestra página web tenemos se llama un test de familiarización con la parte del computador. De nuevo, estos son prácticas gratuitas que no les van a decir qué tal les fue, si van a sacar un 5, un 6, un 7, porque son gratuitas. En cambio, el IELTS Progress Check, que es pagado, sí les va a dar esa banda indicativa.
Y I'm just gonna say one thing in Spanish. Yo sí recomiendo que el IELTS, por ejemplo, para efectos migratorios, sí se tome cuando estés listos con los niveles que se requieren. Y previo a que presenten el IELTS general, que es para efectos migratorios, realmente revisen cuáles son los niveles que necesitan específicamente para el tipo de programa al que van a postular. Porque algo que pasa o es muy frecuente con las personas que sí toman un curso de preparación, no necesariamente es en un centro autorizado, pasan muchísimas cosas, presentan, no era lo que esperaban porque realmente no han tenido no han medido si ya están en los niveles que necesitan, si todavía hay que trabajar un poco más. Y son exámenes que sí realmente no se da a veces de un día para otro, en una semana ya voy a avanzar 2 niveles. No necesariamente, sí nos gustaría que fuera así. Hay personas que realmente son muy buenas para la parte de los idiomas, pero sí, era lo que mencionábamos, estás en un país en el que no hay muchas fechas accesibles para IELTS o lo estás presentando para propósitos específicos como migración, también hay que tener cuidado cuando lo presentamos, porque al día de hoy, por ejemplo, para efectos migratorios, los tiempos de procesamiento realmente, o sea, somos honestos, están un poquito lentos, ¿no? Entonces hay aplicaciones que de repente sí, a lo mejor tú pensabas que ya ibas a postular y por alguna razón no se pudo, se tuvo que posponer la postulación o algo pasó y en el camino se va cumpliendo tiempo, el IELTS pierde validez. Y para efectos migratorios es bien importante que mantenga la validez mientras está ya en el sistema, no necesariamente lo vamos a poder cambiar o actualizar ya cuando están revisando nuestra aplicación. Entonces, presentar el IELTS cuando realmente ya lo vamos a requerir, lo vamos a necesitar, prepararnos para ese entonces. Entonces, tomar los tiempos que tenemos o programarnos en ese sentido con los tiempos para presentarlo cuando realmente lo necesitemos. Claro que también hay personas que toman el IELTS primero porque quieren saber o se ponen muy nerviosas el día del examen y primero quieren ver uno y luego ya presentar otro más adelante. Es súper válido, Pero esa herramienta que comentaste de IELTSProgressCheck.com, ahí la dejaron en el link de Zoom. Espero que se los pongan en Facebook. Yo realmente la utilizaría para ver inicialmente dónde estamos en IELTS, si simplemente quieren ver dónde están ubicados tal cual, o bien ya después de haber tomado un curso además, de todas maneras checar y asegurarnos que estamos ahí en los niveles que vamos a ir necesitando, porque depende si es un académico, si es un general, qué es lo que vas a hacer, cuáles van a ser los niveles. Entonces, bien. So, Natalie, we were just talking about when to take your IELTS, when to do that progress check, and making sure that you know in advance when you need it, because of course, right now the immigration processing is taking a little bit more than expected, right? So your IELTS must be valid. I don't know if there's any other questions. I don't know if Luis is going to put the questions there, but if not, is there anything else that you guys want to let us know about IELTS, how it's working? Is everything back to normal? How about Conestoga? Is everything back to normal? How's it going on that side?
Yeah, that's
Go
a
ahead,
great
Natalie.
question. Yeah, great question. We have definitely had a bit of a shift over the past couple of years, definitely. You know, our first area of importance was wanting to make sure that all of our candidates are safe. So we had a lot of measures in place to make sure that, because we have continued to test throughout the pandemic. So we wanted to make sure that anyone that's taking a test at our location is safe, and that we have the right measures in place to support folks. But as things are easing a little bit, at least in the province of Ontario, things are quote unquote getting back to normal in a way, which is nice to see. But yes, IELTS testing continues to be very popular this time of year. So if I would have any suggestions for folks, it's just, if you know that you need to take the IELTS test for whatever reason, do as much research as you can. Prepare yourself for the test. Review what the test is like. Understand how you'll be graded. And once you have all that information, then you'll be in a better position to know how much preparation you need and how far out you need to book your test. And yeah, just make sure that you book your test when you have all that information, and make sure to request your extra TRFs if you can when you're taking your test, so that you don't need to pay additional when your test is finished.
And I'll just add to that. So just a little bit of that extra information. So when you are registering for your IELTS test, you need to make sure that you're going to have an option to choose up to 5 organizations where you can send that IELTS test to. So if you are sending it to schools, for example, for academic, then you choose the schools that are there. If they're not there and say, oh no, we don't send them to here, you can always put in the information in writing, their address. And this is not when you're taking the test, this is when you're registering for the test. So, you know, you don't worry about it. And still, if you don't have that information, you just want to take it because you don't know where you're going to send your results to, just save that information, contact your test center later on, and they will be able to give you that TRF. Now, in terms of advice, practice. Yes. I know, we cannot say it enough. We're not here to fail you. We're not here to put roadblocks on your way. On the contrary, we want you to succeed. And success comes with a little bit of hard work. And it's about getting that score that you need. Because IELTS, you don't pass or fail. Really, if for a school, the school is asking you for at least a 6.0 or a 6.5 minimum, or for immigration, the higher score you have, or the better score, the better points you're gonna get. So again, practice. Make sure that you know when you need to take the test by. If you know that, you know what, I don't do that well with computer, I want to write it on paper. I know that my results take approximately 13 days to come out if I write on paper. When do I have to write the test in order for those 13 days to be right at the deadline? And of course, we would never recommend that you do things at the last minute, right at the deadline, but just prepare yourself, like Natalie was saying.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, it takes a lot of practice. And we're not saying that, that doesn't mean that or not, we're not saying it's really hard. No, it just takes practice. It takes a time. So if you're going to take the time to take the IELTS, prepare in advance according to your timetable, according to your plans. So that would be a good thing. Santiago is asking for immigration purposes, when is the best time to take the exam? It really depends on which program you are applying to. Depending on what program you're applying to, you gotta check the processing times of that specific program. To be honest, there used to be a 6-month processing time for some, not anymore. Right now, there's a backlog. So there are programs that could be a year. There are programs that are provincial programs that are taking longer than that, 2 years. So you, at least for us with our clients, we will let them know when to take the IELTS. Once everything is ready, everything else is ready, then you take your IELTS. So we're good on that. Otherwise, if you're expecting still documents or you're expecting something else and it's going to take time, that takes time off your, the expiry date on the IELTS. And I know it's a long time, 2 years, but then again, 2 years go by really fast. And sometimes for processing with immigration, really right now, we would want to give a better idea, but they're constantly changing. They're trying to get there. They're getting there. They're trying to push the backlog that they had. But again, it might take a little bit of time. So it really depends on what program you will be applying for. So thank you very much, Natalie and Monica, for being here. It was very nice to have you and to be talking about IELTS. And hopefully everything goes back to normal soon. But then again, there's, like you said, there's a lot of things that came with pandemic that are going to be good, which, being able to have your speaking on Zoom and being able to do other things. So thank you guys for letting us know. We will be providing the links and the information you posted as well, so that they can look into Conestoga, they can look into the authorized IELTS centers. And I was really happy to hear about the IELTS progress check. To be honest, I was that is really good. That really lets people know, right? So that's a good thing. Thank you everybody who is watching us live on Facebook. Thank you for being here, the ones on Zoom, the ones on Facebook. So I don't know if you have anything else to say, so we can just close up.
Yep, just my pleasure. Thanks for having us. It was great to share with everyone, and I hope everyone learned something.
I'm sure they did.
Sí, muchas gracias por todo, y práctica, práctica, práctica es lo que más les podemos recomendar. A practicar, por favor.
Gracias a los que están aquí y hablan español. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Vamos a tener más adelante otra serie de entrevistas también respecto a los idiomas. Y bueno, pues gracias por estar aquí. Thank you, Natalie, Monica. Good night, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.